Hello folks, welcome back to Kentucky. It's me again with Bourbon and Books with the Doctor. I am going to be making you tonight a Charleston Punch, and it is motivated by a couple of books that I have read in the recent past. So I will be showing you that and recommending a couple of books to read while enjoying this cocktail. So for a Charleston Punch, I'm going to start off with a typical brandy sniffer type of glass, and I'm also going to be using a large square ice cube. I have the molds for the large square ice cubes, and if you've never done these before, you can find that they're fairly tricky in getting the ice out of there. So here I will show you my trick for getting the ice out of the mold. I use water, and sometimes I will actually go hot with it until it falls out of this mold, which can take a little bit. There. Now, what you'll see is the ice is too big for the glass. So what do we do about that? I go ahead and I run it under some water. Let it melt a little bit. It actually clears it up and makes it look even better than it did at the beginning. Then we'll go ahead and sit that in there. All right, for tonight's bourbon cocktail, I will be using Rebel Yell, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It is also an 80 proof whiskey. Again, it's a good mixer. It is not overly strong, and it is not expensive. We will be doing 1.5 ounces of this, but since I'm a little thirsty tonight, I might do a full 2 ounce. Then, the next key ingredient to a Charleston Punch is Madeira. And Madeira is a fortified wine. And if you don't know much about Madeira, you will learn it from the books I'm going to introduce you to. It is a Portuguese wine that fermented in the boats, in the barrels, on the way over to the colonies from Portugal. And to this day, to be properly considered a Madeira, you have to be aged on the ocean in barrels. For Charleston Punch, you can either use the typical tawny Madeira, which is a red Madeira, or you can use alternatively the rainwater Madeira, which is the more light Madeira. I like a little bit more punch in mine, so I'm going to use the more red Madeira, and it's equal parts bourbon and equal parts Madeira. So we're going to do at least about a 1.5 ounce to 2 ounce pour of that as well, and you can see how nice and dark that makes the cocktail. Now, we are going to select some bitters to add some aroma to this cocktail. I think I'll pick one of my Jamaican bitters. It's got a nice spice blend to it, so we'll give that a good squeeze there. 1, 2, that's plenty. Now again, a good bourbon cocktail does not get shaken, it gets stirred. So we're going to stir that. And since there's not a lot that we have to mix in this one, we're not muddling anything in. I'm just going to let that stir on its own. We're going to now start to prepare our garnish for our cocktail. We've got our ice chilling our glass there. It's starting to melt and go down a little bit, so I might have a little bit more room in this glass. I will take probably my last bourbon marinated cherry and put it right there. Let me see, do I have any more? That is out. Okay. And all I'm going to do with this is go ahead and pour it right over my eyes. You can see that's a big, tall pour. Because of that large ice cube, it fills all the way to the top. As with most cocktails I make, this is another strong one, but not quite as strong as a Manhattan. It's the Madeira really sweetens the bourbon a lot, but it gives the good boldness of a bourbon from Kentucky with the heritage of a Madeira from Charleston and South Carolina. And so that's the Charleston Punch. You could dress this up in a variety of ways, but I like the presentation on that. Now, I recommend that if you enjoy this cocktail, you might want to consider this book, John Adams. It's one of the books I got into that got me started in the presidential series of biographies. But what you'll find is that all of our main forefathers, their preferred drink in the colonial days was Madeira. So if you've never heard of Madeira before, this is where you'll learn a lot about it. On top of that, the other book I would recommend is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Barron. Basically, this is where you find that Savannah, Georgia is the Madeira capital of the United States of America. All Madeiras during colonial days came to port in Savannah. And so Savannah, still to this day, is considered the Madeira capital of the U.S. So when in South Carolina, in a bar or a restaurant, ask for a cocktail with Madeira in it, or just ask for Madeira. In any case, this is tonight's cocktail, a couple of books for reference, which I recommend reading while drinking this cocktail. Have a good night, and stay safe.